Hi everyone, we are back again to continue our lecture. The last time we met, we discussed the definitional issues of instructional psychology. We made effort to differentiate among teaching, education, instruction, and lecturing. Today, we shall walk ourselves through the goals and objectives of instructional psychology or instruction. So we have instructional goals and we have instructional objectives. These two keywords appear to be used interchangeably, but they are unique in their own ways and they carry their own meaning and weight. When we talk about goals, they are broader, they are global, they are wider. But when we talk about objectives, they are specific for a specific purpose. This is the difference that I've just given. Goals are huge, broad, highly generalized, while objectives are specific, tailored towards a particular task or a particular assignment. So by definition, we can say instructional goals are broad, generalized statement about what to be learned by a learner or a student. When we talk about instructional goals as well, we do not specify what exactly the person should do, or which component must the person follow or apply, or through what procedure is the person is going to achieve a particular instructional task. Aside from that, we can give a series of examples that we use as basis when it comes to the explanation or the interpretation of instructional goals. Instructional goals in instructional psychology might be to prepare a learner for something in the future. So let's say, for instance, I want you to be a counselor in the future. Being a counselor in the future is our instructional goal. But if you come to read the program Counseling Psychology, there are several components of the program that will lead you towards attaining the aim or towards attaining the goal of becoming a counselor. So those several components are taking courses that are individualistic in nature, doing practicum, engaging in other activities which come together as one and could lead you towards attaining your goal of being a counselor in life. So the phrase prepare learners specifies the big picture or the general direction or the purpose of the program or course that you have planned doing. When we talk about instructional objectives, they are specific and there are terminal behaviors that we intend achieving at the end of an assignment or at the end of a particular instructional period. Instructional objective, they are terminal behaviors, meaning end behaviors or last behaviors that we want to see in a learner when the learner is being taken through an assignment or the learner is being taken through an instructional process. So they are specific teaching outcomes. The behavior required to perform determines the means for measuring it. So in this sense, it means that what you want to see in the learner, give us the room to know what exactly we're supposed to measure or what we're supposed to evaluate. So that is instructional objectives for you. Furthermore, instructional objectives, they are statements that help us to describe what to be learned by a learner and how the learner is able to learn it after completing the instruction or the course. This view is coming from Kebler et al., 1974. So instructional objectives are specific and they are behavioral in nature. It means the individual must show a conduct, must exhibit a particular trait, or must exhibit a particular behavior or show something to signify that or indicate that he or she has learned. And that makes instructional objective specific. And when instructional objectives are stated, they should be measurable. or observable. When we say measurable, they should be made in a way that we can see the end. We can see the end. And again, they should be made in a way that the layman or the layperson will understand what exactly you intend doing. A vague instructional objectives will never lead you to anywhere as an instructor. So as we have our diverse backgrounds that we came with, each and every one of us here has instructional objectives that we have designed in our programs. These instructional objectives supposed to be tailored towards what we can achieve and not what we can anticipate. They establish the minimal level when we come to instructional objectives. So you must establish at what point in time do I see the learner has learned something? What level of achievement would I use as basis or as a yardstick to indicate that my learners have acquired the required knowledge that I want them to acquire? Instructional objectives may describe the conditions under which a behavior is to be achieved. And equally, it could provide us the procedures or the processes for which we can determine whether the behavior that we have tasked ourselves to measure or to see or to observe or to measure is being achieved. So we state it. This is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to get, and so on and so forth. We have domains of instructional objectives. These domains reflect with the domains of every learner. You have met these things back in your junior or your colleges. You've met this whilst you were doing your college programs. You've met this when you were even doing psychology. When we say domains of psychology, they are no different from the domains of instructional objectives. The domains are three. We have the cognitive domain, the affective domain, and the psychomotor domain. This affective domain, or the cognitive domain, or the psychomotor domain must be part and parcel of every instructional objectives that you set out to establish as an instructor in whatever profession you find yourself. If your instructional objectives do not capture these three major components, it means the learner might like or might be denied of an opportunity to show proof of whatever that he has in a particular component of themselves. Remember, every learner is holistic. So when we are measuring whatever in them, you must measure the learner holistically. Bloom and Cratwell were those who started with the cognitive domain. Later, Cratwell, Bloom, and then Marcia also came with the affective domain. Lastly, psychomotor domain was propounded or was championed by Harrow, 1972. So when we talk about the cognitive domain of instruction, it means that whatever instructional objectives that we plan giving out as instructors, the instructional objectives must be able to let the learner think critically, let the learner solve problems, and let the learner go beyond what we think they know. It brings about deep learning, provocative thoughts, metacognition, critical thinking, creative ideas, all fall under the cognitive domain. We equally have the affective domain. Every learning objective or instructional objective that you have planned for your learner, it should contain the affective component where the learner might have a feel of whatever that he or she has been engaged in. It should lead the learner to develop emotionally. It should lead the learner to be able to interact with you, the instructor, and those that they find themselves mingling with. It should lead the learner to develop inwardly and be able to appreciate the diverse views, diverse descriptions, and the diverse narratives that people offer regarding instruction. Lastly is the psychomotor domain. Over here, the learner should be able to show action or to exhibit an active or movement about the situation. That shows that he or she has learned. So if I've been able to pick things cognitively, affectively, and I can show proof by acting out, it means I've not learned completely. So the psychomotor domain is about activities in the classroom that allow the learner to manipulate or to engage in experiential learning physically so that they'll be able to know what exactly they have been assigned to do. We have features that guides every instructor in formulating good instructional objectives. It goes by the SMART. Every instructional objective must be specific. When we say specific, it should have a particular theme. It should have a particular target. It should have a particular thing that you want to see in the learner. And every instructional objective must be measurable. We should be able to quantify. We should be able to appreciate the words at which it has been done. That is the measurability of it. And it should be attainable. We should be able to finish it and not to leave it along the line. It should be able to be important. That is the relevance of it. No instructional objective should be vague. It should be important to the individual learner, and it should be important to the learning process as well. If an instructional objective is not important to the learning process and the individual learner, no measure or no good learning procedure will occur. Lastly, the instructional objective should be time-bound. It should go according to a time that you have stipulated for it. It shouldn't be low, it shouldn't be beyond. It should be balanced in a way that the learner is able to achieve it. You, the instructor, is able to walk the learner through the processes in order to achieve the objectives that you have set for them. If these things are not done according to the SMART acronym, then it goes against you as an instructor, regardless of how many qualifications or how many certificates you have acquired for yourself. The usefulness of instructional objectives. Why do we need instructional objectives? When we get instructional objectives to guide our process of instruction, it helps us to be able to, it provides we, the instructors, a focus. Yes, what we're supposed to do. It gives us the opportunity to measure what we have engaged our learners in so that we can get to know whether they have attained the acceptable level of skill that we want them to gain. Again, it gives you the opportunity to self-evaluate as an instructor, whether what you have done, you have achieved it or not. Assuming as I started teaching you, I've not given you what we intend doing the semester, and I start teaching, how would you feel? You might have a lot of thinking in you, things that have gone against you, and you end up saying that, no, even Dr. Inusa Mahama is not doing what he taught us to do. So every instruction that you intend doing is about evaluating yourself as an instructor, and the learner will also benefit from the process of instructional objectives. How do we formulate instructional objectives? We have several ways we should be able, or we could use as basis to formulate instructional objectives. I've had with you here the ABCD model or criteria. The ABCD model or criteria. First of all, you must think about the audience. Who are those to benefit from the instructional objectives? Who are those that are going to be engaged in the activity that you have planned for them? Is it you, the teacher, or the learner? If it's the learner, tailor it in a way that it will reflect what they want and not what you want as an instructor. The behavior criteria or model. What do you want to see in the person that you engage in the activity? What exactly do you want to use as basis to say indeed they perform or not? You must think about that. And the condition, that is the C. Under what state would you say that they've done or not, or they've achieved your aim, or they've achieved your objective or not? Under what condition? Is it a pen and paper test? Is it a face-to-face interaction between you and the person? Is there any activity that the person must do for you to know that indeed this is what I want you to do? Or this is what I use as base to say that indeed you have acquired what I want you to acquire. Lastly, to what extent would you say they have performed or not? To what extent would you say the learner has performed or not, which we call the degree? How well must the behavior be done? What is the degree of mastery? You think about all these things when you are developing your instructional objectives. What advice do we have for you when developing instructional objectives? The key to formulating a good instructional objective is using an action verb. Verbs that ask you, that propel you to take an action. So you can use several of them, such as calculate, read, identify, match, explain, translate, prepare. It means it is gingering the learner. It is propelling or compelling the learner to engage in an act. So action verbs are the most important words that we use or phrases that we use as basis to instruct our learners to do what we want them to do. That is why many a times when you are developing your own lesson plans in school, even in the lesson plan, you have such words there. There are some words that are appropriate, some are not appropriate. But any of these 7 words that I've given you, you can use them interchangeably based on the kind of task you want your learners to engage in so that you can get the best of the instructional process. In fact, there are many instances we, the tutors, never knew the kind of words that we're supposed not to use when it comes to instructional objective formulation. When you use them, you may not get the import of what you want to do. Such words are understand. How do you understand? How do you measure the word understanding? Does the understanding even move you as a learner or an instructor? Saying it or using it as one of the words in phrasing or formulating instructional objective will be downward. It will go like a downward spiral. It will go back against you as an instructor. Appreciate, internalize, value. These are not usable. If you want the best ones, go by what I've indicated earlier. Use these words in your course goals, but not when formulating instructional objectives. So if you check the difference between instructional objective and instructional goals, these words are more appropriate in using them or in applying them in your instructional goals and not instructional objectives. So you could see that in some of the goals of our instructions, we say at the end of the lesson, the learner should be able to understand. It means that goal is what? Instructional goal. The learner should be able to value, to appreciate, to internalize their instructional goals. But within them, we cannot give the instructional objectives. That sometimes we say learning outcomes. What do you want the learner to show at the end of the day? Learning outcomes. So the learner to be able to play a drum and dance to a tune. The learner will be able, or the learner shall be able to play a drum and dance to the tune. That is an action. Shall be. It's a verb, an action verb. So let's guide ourselves when we try formulating instructional objectives. Our unit 2 is about diversity in learning and instruction. As the picture depicts, we have different individuals valuing each other regardless of skin, intelligence, talent, or years. We may find ourselves in a common environment, but then we are different. What I see to be A, you can see to be vain. What I see to be 9, you can see to be 6. That shows diversity. The way you perceive things could be different from the way I perceive things. And you don't expect me to see things the way you see it. That gives us the room to diversity. Diversity cannot be done away. Diversity has been one of the critical goals of the Sustainable Development Goals. That wherever we find ourselves, we need to diversify our processes of learning so that every learner will be factored into the learning process. Wherever you have a learning process where some people are benefiting and others are going against, it means you have not held on to the SDG goal that says equality and equity through diversity. That's the goal 16. You can go and read about it. So the learning and the learning situation appear in theory as homogeneous. Sometimes we see learning situation or the learning environment that we find ourselves to be the same. However, they are not the same. They are highly heterogeneous. They are highly heterogeneous. Heterogeneous because we have different individuals coming to the same class that we think is so common to us. So there exists a difference in the way we do our things. There is a difference between the way learners do their things. So we, the instructors, are different, and the students that we engage to are different. Mind you, there are several instances you try to compare lecturers, even in your department. Oh, this lecturer is good, that lecturer is good. This one is not good. He does that. We don't understand anything. Anytime at all we start talking about these things, yes, it's good we compare, but you think about diversity. Are we the same? No. Once we are not the same, I'm ugly and you are pretty or handsome, it means our thinking too can never be the same. So these differences call for a holistic diversification in our learning process. Because we have differences in the way and manner we do things, we try to bring in diversified way of teaching so that each and every learner will benefit from our learning process. Diversity in education or teaching and learning does not reside only in the classroom. Even at home, we have diversity between children of the same parents. So diversity can include our socioeconomic status. Me, my father was never a billionaire. The highest automobile my father bought was a motorbike. And that motorbike, we never rode it. People rode it to spoil it. But some people are born with what? Silver spoons or golden spoons in their mouth. It means socioeconomically, their parents are wealthy. Again, ethnicity is one of the things that lead us to diversification in the learning situation. Religion is one. There are many instances we say, Muslims are bad, Voltarians are bad, and so on and so forth. Why must we say Muslims are bad or Voltarians are bad, but no other tribe or religion is bad? We are all the same. No difference between us. No difference between us. Again, when we come to gender, there are many instances we think that once you are a male or a female and you find yourself in the midst of